And welcome back, family, to another installment of Metaphysics on Your Mind Again. Where we left off the last installment, we were talking about the new earth. And in this one, it's titled The New Earth, New Mind. So it's kind of like the New Earth Part 2. And we're going to read the small verse from Revelation that kind of ties in with this idea of a new earth, and then we can kind of extrapolate from there and see what we got. So let's check it out. This is Revelation 21. Just the first 4 verses, really. And as from prior episodes, we've moved around Revelation. So here we are back again. This is Revelation 21, verses 1 through 4. And again, this is John. The narrator is John. And I saw a new heaven and a new earth. For the first heaven and the first earth were passed away, and there was no more sea. So let's just kind of take a look at this first verse. So John sees a new heaven and a new earth because the first heaven and the first earth were passed away, and there was no more sea. Now, if we look at this literally, let's just say this was a literal reenactment. When we get to the point of first heaven and first earth were passed away, and there was no more sea, well, literally, I would propose that it doesn't mean that in the new heaven or the new earth, there was no more actual sea, the ocean. I would say that we are again talking about as above, so below. We're talking about the new heaven and the new earth. Remember, we said the earth is the mind, the lower mind, specifically, with the heaven indicating the higher. So this is saying that the first heaven and the first earth were passed away. Well, when you're born with, your quote unquote first mind, meaning that which you inherit. The chromosomes from your parents, the genetic makeup, the environment that you grow up in, the major influences in your formative years will lead you to your first earth or first mind, right? Now, this is saying that first heaven and that first earth were passed away. So I propose that this is speaking about, and we'll just say on a microcosmic level, this is an internal thing that deals with meditation, okay? Because we said when we're speaking in this realm, in the quantum realm, we're talking about the earth as the mind. And we're talking about the sea. Remember, we said that the sea or water indicates or is symbolizing the emotions, right? So we don't propose that the sea or the oceans on this planet will be no more in this new earth or new heaven and new earth. This is speaking internally. When you go into meditation and you separate from the thoughts of the mind, from the emotions, from the ego for a time, okay? When that happens, what are you doing? Well, we said that the sea indicating the emotions, how powerful your emotions are, And for there to be no more sea, this is indicating that you have separated from the powerful influences of your emotions, at least for the time that you're in this deep state of meditation. Let's go a little further and we can build on this. And this is 21 verse 2. And I, John, saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down from God out of heaven, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. So again, are we talking literally that John sees some city in the sky that comes down from up on high, and it's prepared as a bride for her husband? Literally? No. Again, we are talking about, this is at the symbolic level. We said the holy city, New Jerusalem. But we're not talking about the physical city of Jerusalem on the planet. Remember that in ancient writings, in mysticism, we are using stand-ins, could be actual places, as stand-ins to tell our story, to convey the parable, to convey the metaphor, right? Which will have many levels of meaning. So in this context, to see the holy city, we know we're not talking about a physical city, because there's no city on this planet in and of itself that's holy. It is indicating Jerusalem. The meaning of Jerusalem is city of peace. We've talked about the earth or the city as being the mind, the functioning of a mind, like a city functions, right? And for it to be holy and new, again, in the state of meditation, what are you doing? You are becoming whole. You are separating from the idea that you are this or you are that, and you are coming into communion with the divine, with the higher self, with the higher consciousness, right? And so this is presaging the new mind, the new Jerusalem, the new city of peace. Another word, the new mind at peace, not at war with itself, not, trying to plot and scheme and plan and project and be defensive. It is the city of peace, because we have separated from the thoughts of the emotions. We're watching ourselves, remember, in meditation. You are watching the activities, the phenomena of the processes of your mind, the mental and emotional activity. Are we not? So the holy city, which we know is not a physical city in the sky, is talking about now the mind at peace in communion with the whole, or the one, or God, or source, or Allah, or whatever you want to call it. You have come into communion, because it says coming down from God out of heaven. What is heaven? We said heaven means heaved up, the higher mind. This New Jerusalem coming out of the higher mind, meaning that now your mind in communion, there can be changes made. There can be a holism affected, where you come into communion with that which is the whole. We'll just put it that way. You come out of separation, even though you've separated from the thoughts and the emotions and the illusions of the physical mind. And it says, prepared as a bride adorned for a husband. Well, we know it's, again, not an allusion to a bride or, and a groom literally. We said before, symbolically, the left hemisphere of the brain represents the logical, rational, masculine side. We all have it. The right hemisphere of the brain represents the emotional, spiritual, well, I'm going to say part of the emotional nature, the lower emotions, and the higher emotions there's a couple of levels, but let's just say that the spiritual and creative and subconscious mind is represented by the right hemisphere, that which connects you to the spiritual. That's why God is about righteousness. And we sit at the right hand of God. It's not talking about your physical hand, okay? It's talking about the right hemisphere, that part that represents the spiritual or creative side, okay? And we remember, if we go back to Genesis, we talked about that the woman, or the feminine principle that we all have, represented as the right hemisphere of the brain, is made subject to the man, or the masculine, or the logical mind, the conscious mind, in order to navigate this conscious experience we call living on earth, right? So the bride is that spiritual dimension that is now being married to the physical, rational, intellectual, quote unquote, self. And we have a marriage, we have a wedding, but it's a holy one because it takes place within, right? Okay, let's read on a little further. And I heard a great voice out of heaven saying, behold, the tabernacle of God is with men, and he will dwell with them, and they shall be his people, and God himself shall be with them and be their God. Now let's go back. Behold, the tabernacle of God is with men. It didn't say the tabernacle of God used to be with men. It didn't say the tabernacle of God in the future will be with men. It said it is with men. And we've talked about in other verses where it says the kingdom, where is the kingdom of God, the kingdom of heaven, is within you. And this is confirming it, saying the tabernacle, the kingdom, whatever you want to call it, is with you. It is with men, and God will dwell with them, and they shall be his people, and God himself shall be with them and be their God. Now, what's that talking about? It's not talking about an actual group of people on the planet physically. It's talking about in your mind, when you commune with the higher, when there is the marriage of the lamb. We talked about the sacrifice that had to be made, the lamb representing your cerebrum, your brain, having to be sacrificed, is represented as the ego being sacrificed, right? So that the spiritual can live. As we talked about that, it said, if the kingdom of God is within you, and the temple is within you, and the tabernacle is within you, that's where God dwells. Remember the other verse that we talked about where it say, howbeit God dwelleth not in a temple made with hands? We went through that. So God isn't dwelling, whether it's a church, a tabernacle, a temple, a mosque, whatever you want to say. That's not what this is talking about. It's talking about the temple, the tabernacle, the church, the mosque within you, right? That's what it's talking about. Because if this comes together internally, then this can come together externally. See, one precedes the other. The thought comes before the thing. The invisible comes prior to the visible. So that manifestation comes out of the invisible. So let's read a little bit further. And God shall wipe away all tears from their eyes, and there shall be no more death, neither sorrow nor crying, neither shall be there any more pain. For the former things are passed away. So again, for those who have done the deeper meditation, separating from the emotions, separating from the problems, separating from the fears, separating from the thoughts, some of which are yours and some of which are projections from some other people that are trying to gain entry into your consciousness and merge into your consciousness, separating from all that. What's it saying? No more tears, no more death. What it means is, now that you have separated from the flesh, now that you've made the sacrifice of the lamb, meaning you have symbolically sacrificed the flesh, there's no more death. See, you are now resurrected within the higher for a time. You are now resurrected within the higher self, or with the God mind. Why? Because you made the sacrifice and separated from the temporal, or symbolically the flesh, embodied by the intellect and the emotions, right? Let's read a little bit further. Neither shall there be any more pain, for the former things are passed away. And this is verse 5. And he that sat upon the throne, if the kingdom is within you, that means there's a throne within you. That means that when you separate and you go into communion with the higher, God, or the higher, is enthroned in his kingdom, which is in you. Verse 5. And he that sat upon the throne said, Behold, I make all things new. Think about that. So in other words, the presence of the higher within you transforms everything. So the new earth and the new mind is about a transformation within ourselves. And it's also, to a degree, we can see that there are changes upon the physical earth itself. We are seeing that there are climactic changes. We are seeing, a lot of what has happened before. As Shakespeare said, the past is prologue. As the Bible said, there's nothing new under the sun, because time is not, we got to get away from thinking of time as linear, right? We got to think it more as a cycle, as cycles, like a spiral. And you can repeat cycles until you learn lessons. If you wonder why your life isn't changing when you want it to change, because there is something that is keeping you within a certain loop or level. And you cannot advance beyond that level until you learn that lesson. That is the point of rising in levels, is that you're going to keep going around in circle and chasing your tail until you stop and say, wait a minute, let me not worry about other people. Let me not worry about what they're doing. Let me focus upon what am I doing or not doing. Because you can't control anybody else. That's a fool's game. That's a fool's paradise. Okay? Initially you might think you can, but it's a fool's paradise, fool's gold. It's you. So when you begin to come back and circle back to you and go, what is it, God? What is it that why does this keep happening to me? And you ask for within yourself, and you ask for clarity. You ask for, what is the lesson here? Why am I on this loop? Okay. And it will be revealed to you. That's what revelation, again, is referring to. What was once hidden will be brought out into the light. But as we all know, we have free will. The Most High isn't going to do it just because it needs to be done. You have to invite it, or you will have to get it out of the lessons that keep putting, right in front of you over and over and over. Why am I attracting this? And why am I attracting that? And why am I attracting this person and that person? Well, that's what the self-examination we talked about, the self-reflection, will teach you. We have to learn to trust our intuition. See, that's what we've been given. It is the vehicle of discernment. When you don't have something that you can lay out in an A, B, C, D rational fashion, right? You've got to piece it together in other ways. Well, we've been given something called an inner voice, an intuition that many times we refuse to heed. Why? Because it doesn't make sense to our logical mind, or it's not what we think that we want. But your intuition is your connection in real time, in conscious time, when you're not meditating. Your intuition is your conduit to the higher. See? When you hear that voice, when you get that feeling that something here is a little weird, something's a little, that's trying to communicate with you, right? But a lot of times, our logical selves, our ego, or our unwillingness to face our shadow selves, which is also a mistake. This is what happens. We go into denial, and we point to other things, external things, and other people, places, and things. That's why I can't get it together. That's why. Well, what we're going to learn, if everything again is energy, you begin to see these energetic forms in a bit of a different way. Meaning that, if there are laws to how energy operates, and we know that we have what's called, good energy, or, the light, and we know that we have what some would call not so good energy, dark energy, right? Positive and negative. We have, we live in between pairs of opposites, right? You have the conscious, quote unquote, good self, and then you have the shadow self. Everything, it's a balancing act. So when you think of everything being as energetic, then you begin to see, instead of looking at that person as a person, and that board as a board, and that chair as a chair, these are forms of energy. And there are laws to how energy operates, right? It's not destroyed. It's not really created. It's just, reformulated. It takes a different form. So when we begin to understand that everything, including our concepts of the Most High, including our concepts of, good and evil, and the devil, and this and that, this is all energetic. So your reality becomes what you put out based upon what you believe that you're perceiving. So if you are being a magnet of a certain kind of an energy, well, that means that there's a reason for it when you think of things in energetic forms. In other words, why am I attracting, these kind of experiences? Well, again, self-reflection, self-examination, the shadow work, aka going within, that's when you begin to understand the various formations of energy, right, that always exist, and that there are energetic influences. So when people, shall we say, that don't believe that the planetary bodies have an influence on you, well, I mean, that's ludicrous, because the sun certainly has an influence. The moon has an influence. The tides, the oceans, your emotions, the other planetary bodies do as well. See, everything is energy. It's just at different forms and strata, and some energy is visible to the five senses, to the sight, and other energies are not visible to the physical eyes, to the sight, right? They can be maybe felt, but not seen. So when we begin to understand energy operates at all these different levels, then things will begin to make more sense of how we have a much greater influence on the lives we live and the reality that we perceive. We begin to understand that the brain computer has an energetic influence on the environment and vice versa. See? So if you surround yourself with negative energy, Well, what experiences do you think you're going to have? It just stands to reason, right? And the point of all this is that we talked about how in this book and in other prophecies from many cultures, they prophesied about the end of a world, or the end of an age, or the end of an epoch. Okay. And we talked about the stellium in one of the earlier episodes, the Aquarian stellium that happened in 1962, February of 1962, when, 7 of the planets lined up, and then it happened again in 2021, another Aquarius stellium, which we propose that that's indicating that that's the cusp, that's the window through which we are wending our way through into this new age. We're leaving the age of Pisces, the age of belief, coming into the age of Aquarius, the age of knowing. We can see it reflected in our civilization. In the age of Pisces, which was 2,000 years, the age of belief, well, the great religions of the world appeared during the age of Pisces, the age of belief, the age of believers. Now in this Aquarian age, where things that have been hidden shall be revealed, okay, we're coming into the age of knowing. So if you know, you don't need to actually believe, right? See, belief is when you're not quite sure, but that may be all that you have. But when you know, you know. So you don't need to, I don't need to believe the sun rises in the east. I know it does. See, there's a distinction there. So we're moving to this age where things that have been hidden, things that have happened in the background, have happened in the shadows, are going to be exposed to a new light, new earth, a new heaven. This is a transition, a transformation. And it is an opportunity for us, for those who may be inclined to do so, to do what we can to connect with this changing energetic expression of the age so that we are more in accord with it. Okay? We're moving with it, you see, and not resisting just because maybe we don't fully understand. Well, there's a lot we don't understand, but we have to go on living, right? So the intuition is what's going to help us to navigate when you don't have a physical map, but you got to get somewhere. That's what the intuition is going to do. We're going to begin to listen more and better within ourselves, right? Because the higher is communicating to us through signs and symbols and experiences and people, places, and things. But it's up to us to be aware of, okay, where is this taking me, right? Because again, if we're just going to go around and around in circles and having the same experiences, it's because we're not learning the lessons that we were or that are there for us to learn in order for us to go on to what's called a higher timeline, meaning a timeline where you have the opportunity for a higher expression of self, where you have the opportunity to, which is what we're all trying to do, is to quote unquote better ourselves, to be the better version of ourselves. If you look at each of those levels, right, you can look at that as another version of yourself. But in order to be in alignment, to get on a particular loop, to have the experiences needed, you may have to escape the current loop and not just repeat it around and around and around. So this time of revealing, this time of this age of Aquarius, this age of the water bearer, pouring out the spirit of the new wine. Okay, we're speaking in symbols, but we're also speaking on many different levels. This new wine, we want to get in alignment with that so that we have an opportunity to raise our level of consciousness, because it's already there for us. But again, if we're going to repeat old beliefs and old ways of being which no longer apply, right, with the new dispensation, okay, if it's out of date, then we're going to miss that opportunity to take that rendezvous, which, you know, we don't want to do. So we'll continue in this vein about the new earth, the new mind. But again, we would say that we are at the brink of many changes. We talked about the Wheel of Fortune was up here for some. Now it's going to be up here for others, right? The first shall be last and the last shall be first, all that stuff. We're going to find out that is real. And it's up to us to figure out how to respond to it. So again, once again, we thank everybody that continues to view these videos. It's wonderful to be able to share. Not that we all have to agree, not that we all have to take everything wholesale, but it's an exchange and it's an opportunity for us to glean something out of whatever experience that we have that can be useful to us as we move forward in our lives. So once again, we thank you.